This is a show for the leaders of tomorrow. You're listening to stories of innovators creating groundbreaking technology and change makers that are shaping the way we live our lives. I'm your host Hussain, and you're joining me while we're peeking into the future. Welcome to the Spark Podcast. Hi, welcome to the Spark Podcast. Our guest today is the founder and CEO of MySun, India's largest online rooftop solar platform. Having received a seed funding of $2.5 million in 2016, MySun is one step closer to redefining the way we perceive and utilize energy. With over a decade's experience in the solar industry, please welcome Mr. Gagan Varmani.
Thank you.
Mr. Varmani, you founded an online platform called MySun 3 years ago. What is MySun's vision and what are you trying to accomplish?
Well, we founded MySun when we realized that after having seen the growth of large-scale solar industry at the pace at it was growing at that point in time, we saw an absolute lack of work on the decentralized or the rooftop solar generation. When we compared it with the Government of India targets, we realized that there was absolutely so much that was needed to be done on the rooftop space as compared to whatever was happening on the large scale projects. So that's where we realized when the cost of solar power has been dropping so significantly and still the end consumers, people like you and I, and the industries or the commercial establishments were not adopting solar. That's where we started looking deeper into the dynamics of this business, and further started digging out what are the reasons why the market is not growing, why the consumers are not adopting solar the way they should be. And, that's where we started coming up with this idea of an online platform where not only, an internet-based medium allows you to reach out to a larger audience without any bias or restrictions on locations, but it also allows you to speak to them in a certain manner, get the feedback, and then tweak your messaging in such a manner so that you can reach out to them with a message that they understand, the language that they understand, and how can we make solar much more acceptable to consumers. So that was the whole idea, right?
How do you feel the market has matured over these past few years?
Significantly. I think no one would have imagined, even I hadn't imagined that the market would grow to such levels that it has done today. We realized that the bulk of the market was primarily run like a cottage industry. The consumers were basically the consumers for home lighting kits, or primarily the rural end of the customers, and who were being catered to by a subsidy driven, tender driven. So that's where when we started seeding the policymakers, the decision makers, the regulatory authorities, and the distribution companies about the idea of large-scale solar and how it can benefit the Indian economy in a way that it should. And then we brought in a lot of exposure to the Indian policymakers towards what was happening in Europe at that point in time. Germany was leading, and they were just unstoppable at that point in time in terms of the growth rates in renewable energy space. We were pretty surprised when the government started, started drafting a policy in 2008. January was the first time when Government of India came up with a small, it was large at that point in time, a 50 megawatt program for solar farms. It was both for PV and thermal. Since then, we have seen the previous regime coming up with a 20 gigawatt target, the existing regime increasing it to 100 gigawatts by 2022, and actually not doing a bad job at it. We have already seen the total installations go beyond 20 gigawatts, which is a great sign. From 24 crores a megawatt to today, less than 4 crores a megawatt, I think it wouldn't have been possible if someone would not have thought about reaching this kind of scales sometime back in 2008.
Right, so when you say the government's focus towards renewable energy has increased quite a lot since 2008, but the focus has been primarily remained with large-scale solar parks and, as you said, centralized production. So with new entrepreneurs entering the market, there isn't yet a one-size-fits-all solution. What do you think, and which market segment do you feel that we should prioritize to achieve the targets that are being set?
Well, it's a chicken and egg situation. In order to reduce the cost of any product, and in this case, let's talk about solar. It's very important to have a significant economies of scale. And now, when the costs have come down to such low levels that it has already started making a lot of sense for everyone to switch to solar. I repeat it by saying anyone who consumes energy today, it makes a lot of financial sense, whether it's a residential customer or a commercial, industrial, or anyone else, to switch to solar. It's purely on a financial returns basis without the utility scale costs coming down.
What is the motivation for a potential consumer to switch to solar in rural and urban areas of India?
When we started thinking about this venture, the first thing, what we did was to understand the benefits of solar in financial terms for a residential customer.
Mhm.
And we thought, okay, let's look at why would a residential customer who has access to a rooftop would want to switch to solar. And then, from a financial perspective, we realized that if I invest, let's say 3 lakhs or 5 lakhs in a solar system, the returns on my investment, the yield that I get post tax, is much more than any other asset class. Even more than if I invest the same amount of money in a real estate or stock markets, my returns from solar are much higher and less risky. And we were so excited with the results that we ended up doing it for almost each and every pin code in the country and for each type of customer, developing a beautiful set of algorithms so that we can present to the customers a very easy to use tool whereby they with more than 95% accuracy, any customer anywhere in the country can by just giving us 3 simple inputs can understand how they are going to benefit from solar.
Right, sir. So from your innovation and the algorithms that you develop, the information is ready for a consumer to access. But we haven't reached a stage where a consumer thinks about buying a solar panel the same way he would think of buying any other commodity, for example, a car. How do you feel this mindset can be achieved going forward?
So that was the second challenge, because solar is not a lifestyle product.
Mhm.
So there is not a ready demand. We thought of we thought that a marketplace model would be the best suited for solar, but pretty soon we realized that marketplaces only work for products where you already have a ready demand. We just can't keep on harping about trying to sell solar. We have to sow the seeds where people actually start demanding solar. They should start wanting to buy solar. And it's not easy, because what you are trying to do is you're actually trying to change the conception or change the notion about energy amongst Indian consumers. And energy is a boring subject. No one really, in our drawing rooms, we really talk about energies. So
Right.
that's where we started spending a lot of time in understanding and then experimenting different ideas. One of the experiments which I would like to mention here, which we are quite excited about having done, we started off with Mumbai. We went to Pune, Hyderabad, Bangalore, multiple cities across India. Anyone who's fond of capturing photographs, so we organized a photo walk. Let's say in Mumbai, people walked across the beach, and about 150, 200 people gathered on one fine evening, and they just clicked photographs and just uploaded. So we converted it into a contest, right? But the idea was that anyone who's coming, the underlying message was that they're capturing the sun, and then they're trying to relate it to capturing the sun for generating energy. And we got a huge response across cities. But you're right. We have to move from the idea of selling solar to a stage where people start demanding solar.
Right. Sir. I'm very fascinated by your belief that you have, and that's something that I share with you, that energy is a very boring subject, not something that anyone wants to speak about. A lot of solar companies are trying to sell on the same aspect. They're trying to sell the technology behind it. On the other hand, your company is particularly focused on branding and making the sun or solar energy more personalized. Is it something that is the need of the hour now, since we're talking about a large scale adoption?
So absolutely, you hit the nail on the head. people don't want to understand it. They don't need to actually. Even if they want to, they don't need to get into the details of how the technology works. I mean, you can compare it with any other consumer product. People buying refrigerators or a TV, they don't really get into how a compressor works or how an LED tube works, right? So, that situation in solar has happened because we have been used to selling solar rather than understanding from a customer perspective what he really wants, right? So what we realized quite early, there were about 5,000 solar companies in India. And surprising thing is not a single brand. When we spoke to customers, they have no clue who is a better company and who is not, whom to buy, right? So our motto from day one had been, we not only need to make it easy for consumers to buy solar, we also need to make it much more reliable. Solar is very unique in terms of its execution or installation at a customer's location. A residential customer like me, I would like to be treated in the same manner I'm treated when I'm to buy a car or a high-end LED TV or something else. Second, I want it very easy. Right? Someone should come, no noise made, no fuss made. They come to my roof and come and install it in 1 day, 2 days. Right? Absolutely, solar to a residential customer has to be sold like any other product. It cannot be sold as an industrial product.
Right, sir. So when you say that a brand needs to deliver the right quality, how does the locally manufactured goods, say a panel that's manufactured in India, compare against Chinese counterpart or a Singapore counterpart?
I'm a firm believer of the manufacturer rather than the country from where it comes from. Fortunately or unfortunately, more than 80% of the solar manufacturing globally happens in China today. Mm-hmm. So you would have the best and the largest of the solar companies in China, and you would have the worst, the smallest companies with very poor quality also existing. So you have to choose. People have to spend effort in diligence in terms of understanding which company you're buying it from, doing your initial quality inspections on those manufacturing lines, and then delivering those products to the customers. So, if Indian companies want to manufacture good quality, they can. We have all the capabilities and the know-how to do that. Right? But it's wrong to compare an Indian versus Chinese or a Singaporean or some others. We have to look at the company that we are buying it from. Right? Mm-hmm. We have to look at the track record of the company, whether they have established quality control systems. And see, once a panel is out in the market or it's deployed somewhere, no one can tell whether it's a good, bad or poor panel by just looking at it. So basically, when you're buying solar, you're actually relying on the experience, the brand, the trust that solar manufacturer has developed in himself. I think it's the company rather than whether it's an Indian or Chinese.
Right. So a while ago, the government implemented safeguard duties to protect local manufacturers. How does this affect the growth of the solar industry?
Well, I have been quite vocal with my views on the safeguard duty. And without mincing any words, I think this is a regressive step which was taken primarily on two accounts. One, from a rooftop solar perspective, it pushed back a lot of investment decisions by end consumers, because suddenly they realize that if they are getting X rupees per watt, the new price is 20 rupees plus to that price, right? Which is significant, which is like, let's say 15-20% increase in the price, right? So it suddenly puts decision making in a delay or a slowing mode. Second, we don't know who is getting safeguarded in this case, which is just 2 years, that too also with a phased reduction manner. And, so no one is going to make manufacturing decisions, even if the intent was to get global players to come and set up manufacturing bases in India. Giving them a 2-year vision of policy is not going to attract anyone. And that has been the case. We haven't heard of even a single investment decision which would have come after the safeguard duty. Mm-hmm. So we don't know who is it going to benefit, but we are very sure and we know who is it going to impact. And that impact is not only to the end consumers, because they are delaying their decisions to go solar and therefore paying more for grid energy for maybe 2 years more. But also to the solar industry, a lot of businesses which have been established around this concept, because suddenly if you see your market levels going down, and that is one of the reasons why you don't see too many investors, because investors also want a long-term policy vision in any country.
The government's still doing a lot to propel the renewable energy adoption in India. Which policy of the government has benefited your business greatly?
It's difficult to say which, but I think one thing which has benefited the solar industry, particularly ours or everyone's, is the fact that they continue to focus on large-scale projects, which helped reduce the cost of solar in the country to such low levels. I don't think this would have been possible. The prices would have been, what they are today, if we hadn't seen this kind of scale in the country. This has also ensured that the policymakers, that the DISCOMs, the regulators. So now, when we go out and talk solar, no one questions. They just talk commercials, right? 3 years, 4 years back, people would question why solar. There's so many challenges, blah blah blah. Today, that thing is out of the question because there's so much hype, there's so much media talk, there's just so much coverage. People, hear about solar every day that question of viability of solar has gone away.
And so what advice would you share with the policymakers of our country?
Plenty of things, but I think one thing which I would like to say that having brought down the cost of solar to the levels it is today with a combined effort from industry and government, if we want solar to grow as an industry, government should get out of the way, right? Solar makes huge financial sense at today's cost. So there is no reason for subsidies, first of all. Of course, we needed it 5 years, 6 years back. Today, when we know that any consumer of solar is going to financially benefit from it, I think government should play a more enabling role rather than trying to control. And the more enabling role comes in ensuring that the distribution companies are supportive of deployment of solar, right?
Mr. Varmani, what is one myth about green energy that you can debunk for us today?
Traditionally, we have seen the biggest myth about green energy that the consumers used to have, or even some have today, is that it's a corporate social responsibility. It's a green, but it's not for us. I think that myth to a large extent has been broken, and it is getting broken away, with every passing day. I just repeat, green energy, especially solar, because of its very nature, it's there for each one of us. Anyone, I repeat, which I started in the beginning, anyone who consumes energy today, it's a great financial reason for them to move to solar energy.
All right, Mr. Varmani, with that, let's wrap up the interview with one advice for entrepreneurs that are trying to enter the space and be the leaders of tomorrow.
Well, I think my advice would be there's a lot of room for growth. There's a lot of opportunity. What the potential the country holds, I think not even 1% of that has been, implemented today. So there's a huge opportunity. There's a lot of room for multiple companies to play and make an impact. My advice would be think long term. Don't think that I have to make justice to this business in 1 year or 2 years. That is not going to happen in this industry. You have to think, if you're prepared to play the long haul, then come and enter this business.
Right, you heard that from Mr. Gagan Varmani, the founder and CEO of India's largest online rooftop solar platform called MySun, with the highest priority on educating people about the benefits of solar and providing a remarkable customer experience besides best-in-class quality. Thank you so much for your time, sir, and we're very grateful to host you on the Spark podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Spark podcast. Join the solar energy revolution and train under experts from the industry. Click on the link in the description to find solar installation, solar design, and business training courses. I'll see you in the next episode of The Spark. Till then, goodbye.